Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute, and your devil's advocate. Later on, an in-depth interview with me, but more later. First, Tom Pyle from the American Energy Alliance. Glad to have you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right, you were part of the Trump transition team, and you've been working with the new head of the Department of Energy, former Governor Rick Perry.
Indeed.
Nice gig to have.
Just recently confirmed, and looking forward to getting in there and reorganizing a little bit and getting some of the politics out of the
Why do you people
department.
hate our Earth? What's your problem?
I love the Earth. The Earth is fantastic. We also got to
Stop pillaging it. You're just pillaging it all.
Create jobs, and oh, by the way, we know this: wealth is health, right? We're a wealthy nation, and we're not having the same kind of pollution that they're having in China and other places.
From let's go out big first. The United States is. When I was a kid, the idea was the United States didn't have much. We had coal, that was good. But if you wanted oil, you wanted gas, it was other places. Now, because of technological changes, we're the Saudi Arabia of oil and gas. Am I understating that?
Not at all. The richest energy nation in the world. We've always had the resources. What we didn't have was the right price or the right technology. And that always, over time, proves out that you develop these resources more responsibly and more efficiently. We're in a great place right now. We could be an energy superpower. We could be an exporter, net exporter of our energy resources in a short few years.
You mentioned the price. I remember when the first oil crisis happened in the 70s, and we had boom towns like Grand Junction. I think it was Shell or Exxon put in a shale oil and gas system there, and the town went wild. And then when prices dropped, it crashed. They pulled out of Grand Junction. I remember lots of 10 homes, a lot of 10 homes going for $100,000, 10 grand a house. And so when you say price, are we more stable on that now? In other words, I know we're in a glut right now. That's obviously going to change. Are we going to see that type of fluctuation, or does it depend on politics?
Well, there's a huge chunk of it that is related to politics, but we can't take away the fact that it is a global commodity, and supply and demand is going to go up and down. What we can and have done, though, is I think this period we've seen sort of a sustained loss in like a stabilization of the price, and Saudi Arabia tried to basically bankrupt our frackers, right, by continuing to put more oil into the markets. Well, what ended up happening is those folks got more resilient. They figured out how to produce the resource and still make a profit at a lower price. So they're in business, and we're paying less for our gas. And so I think what we're learning from these big boom and bust cycles is how to better adapt to them and manage them and smooth out the curves. But there'll always be prices going up and down. That's kind of the nature of the beast.
Let's go forward. It was gratifying to see a president take a position on the pipelines, both Keystone and the Dakota Access. And it was so annoying to see no decision. I would have respected Obama had he said what we know he wanted to say, which was, no, we're not doing this. But he had to string it along for 8 years as we're fighting for this. Right, those issues are going to be solved pretty quickly, I hope. Or will it take longer? Are there any more hurdles? When I listen to National Public Radio, I keep hearing how they're still going to be able to stop these pipelines. Will they?
They can, and there will be a period where we've got to unwind the way that the federal government in particular treated business, treated people. These folks are career folks. They stay. The previous administration, some of them were there before. But what's going to change is the philosophy that if you go into a negotiation or you apply for a permit with the federal government, you should get an answer, right? And you shouldn't change the rules halfway through the game. And I think that's what's going to change, is this new administration recognizes that in order to grow our economy, we've got to produce energy, because that's how we compete as a country. So in order to do that more effectively, more efficiently, we've got to get out of this hyper-political way that the previous administration treated these resources.
But there's still going to be loads of litigation. There's still, I I think we have this feeling like, well, we got a pro-energy guy up on top. We now have Rick Perry. Therefore, everything's going to be fine. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
These environmentalists know how to use every rule, every stalling tactic, every way to intervene, every lawsuit. You know, they find snails that need to be saved in places I couldn't believe. Have we turned the corner on this?
No, we haven't. I mean, we're going to continue to see the environmentalists obstruct. The difference is not only can they do that, but in the previous administration, they also controlled the agenda. And so at least now, this administration will be pushing back. But it's up to groups like yours and ours, and it's up to the industry to put the money and the muscle behind pushing back against all of this, because it's not going to go away anytime soon.
Let me talk about the industry. The industry are a bunch of engineers, all right? And they've never, until recently, put any money, resources into educating people on their side of the issue. They think we have science on our side. You know, no, this doesn't contaminate groundwater. No, it doesn't do this. No, it doesn't do that. And therefore, we're fine. The perfect engineering brain. And I saw it happen with the coal industry. These guys never played politics. They just knew that the country needed them, and so everything's going to be okay. Has industry learned they actually have to frickin' engage people now and put some of their investments back into getting their side of the story out?
I think they're getting there, and I think that the pipelines are a perfect example. Exactly what you said. Pipeline companies are used to keeping their head down, getting their permits. This is the safest way to transport these resources, bar none, right? And so they didn't really feel like they had to engage in all of this.
Like you're sending this stuff by trucks or trains, have spills, and no. This is the safest way to move the product. This is the most environmentally sound way to move the product.
And their attitude was, this just makes sense.
Yeah.
So why do we need to get involved? But what the other side is hawking is emotion and rhetoric and mostly lies. And so what you cannot fight. You can't fight groups who exist to put you out of business without, like you said, engaging and educating and reaching out to folks and communicating what the value of your products are for society. It's not just putting your gasoline in the tank and getting in the car and going. These resources provide the products that we use every single day, all day long in our lives, and we don't think about that kind of stuff. So that's where they need to go. They need to talk about the value that their products provide for society.
Well, and also the cleanliness of it. It is crazy to me to think that here we are digging out coal that we're not allowed to use. So the coal in America goes onto diesel trains and go across country and then put into a diesel ship to go across the ocean, to go into another diesel train, to go into China and get burned by a really terribly polluting, inefficient power plant, and somehow we're better off for this. You know, like Mother Earth really thinks that's a better deal.
Yeah, and then the environmental groups fly to conferences across the country in jet airplanes, and it's all hypocrisy. The fact is we need these resources. 80% of the energy that we use comes from three sources: coal, oil, and natural gas. You cannot replace those resources with windmills and solar panels. There's a place for them if they find a market niche for them, but it's not comparing apples to apples. These resources drive our economy, and they produce the value that runs the world. So,
all right, things will not get sizably better, I think, in D.C. I think they will just stop getting worse. I think, now let's talk about the EPA, for example. The EPA was told on the transition, no, you can't use your Twitter accounts to propagandize. And we had journalists screaming, no, this is a violation of the First Amendment. Same thing happening in the Department of Energy?
A little bit, yeah, and a lot of leaks, and a lot of folks that are like upset or haven't come to terms with the results of the election. But it's not significantly different from other transitions. I think it's just more amplified today because we have a seriously polarizing figure who beat a seriously polarizing figure. And also we have more communication tools than we've had in previous administrations. So these things happen in a transition, perfectly normal. I mean, the day that Donald Trump was sworn in, I got a call from the New York Times. He took all the climate change references out of the White House website. What does that mean, right? I'm like, it means that that's not his priority. Get over it, right? I mean, that's the climate change is an issue.
Who are archiving this stuff in a narrative that the administration is taking these numbers and burning them somehow so they can't be found. You know, it's a wonderful scare tactic,
Yeah.
and I think it hits a lot of people and actually works. Talk to me about the state side. Let's say we take care of that here. Colorado used to be the fastest place to get an approval for drilling.
Yeah.
Not that is an answer. All right. This doesn't mean the yes or no. It means an answer. We're nowhere near that now, and it's getting more and more difficult. So much so that the cost of compliance to these companies makes it unaffordable. So they go to Wyoming or they go to someplace else. What state is doing it right, and which state is doing it wrong?
I call it a tale of two cities, right? And by city, I mean jurisdictions. The way the previous administration treated production or leasing or permitting on federal lands was discriminatory. Basically, they have the production on these lands are negative. They've decreased year over year over year, while the vast increases in production have occurred in Texas, in North Dakota, right? In places where they have the resource on private or state lands, and they have regulatory agencies that know what they're doing, and like you said, get an answer, right? That's the key.
And who's doing it? Who's doing it poorly?
Anywhere, any state that has, I mean, in my view, the worst is the federal government. Any state that has a lot of federal lands haven't been able to participate in this energy renaissance like states that don't. So.
All right, people want to get more information about your organization. Where do they go?
AmericanEnergyAlliance.org.
AmericanEnergyAlliance.org. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, I got to warn you. I didn't approve this next one. Really, I didn't. Stay tuned.